The story begins on a silent and eerie night. Our first character, Lin, notices some strange movements in his cornfield. Holding a flashlight, he cautiously looks around. Suddenly, he spots drops of blood on a leaf. Following the bloodstains, what he sees next leaves him frozen in fear. A dead body, and not just anyone's but his mentor, Mulia's. Summoning his courage, Lin bends down to touch him. As soon as he grabs Mulia's shoulder, his head falls off with a thud. The shock leaves Lin gasping for breath. Meanwhile, the story's heroine, Noon, is a student at an Islamic boarding school. Sitting in her room, she watches the news, which reports that Mulia, once an ordinary man, is now performing miraculous healings. The villagers consider him nothing less than an angel and even worship him. Nun is a huge fan of Mulia and constantly imitates his magical abilities. But her teacher disapproves of this. The teacher turns off the TV and explains that believing in black magic instead of medical treatment is wrong. However, Noon is completely mesmerized by Mulia's magic. One day, a man visits Mulia, not to cure an illness, but to escape his poverty. He places his last remaining wealth before Mulia. Mulia places a knife on the man's hand and chants a magical spell. A miracle happens. The wound on the hand disappears, and a box filled with money appears. Now the game of greed begins. The man, desperate for more wealth, is willing to sacrifice his own daughter. Meanwhile, Noon is returning to her hostel at night. On the way, the streetlights flicker strangely, and suddenly she hears someone calling her name. She turns around and sees Mulia standing there, holding the same knife. Noon feels a mix of fear and joy, but in the next moment, something happens that shakes her to the core. Mulia disappears. Just then, her friend Rini arrives, and Noon tells her everything. However, when they check the spot where Mulia was standing, no one is there. After reaching the hostel, Noon sees a shocking news report on TV. Mulia has died. The police and forensic team are investigating the cause of death. At that moment, her teacher reveals a shocking truth. Mulia was Noon's biological father. Stunned, Noon opens the belongings left by her mother. Inside, she finds some jewelry, bundles of cash, and old photographs of her parents. Her world turns upside down when she realizes that Mulia was her real father. The next day, Noon attends Mulia's funeral with her friends. There, Mulia's student, Lin, recognizes her and takes her straight to Mulia's body. Noon is shocked. The cause of death is a deep cut on the throat, exactly as she had seen that night. But the surprises don't end there. Noon notices a strange mark on Mulia's hand, the same mark that she has on her own hand. Is this all just a coincidence? Or is there a bigger mystery at play? Lin introduces Noon to Mulia's third wife, Ajan, who is pregnant. Then Lin tells Noon that Mulia left something special for her. He takes her to an old abandoned factory. Lin goes inside to retrieve something, while Noon waits outside. But then something strange happens. The curtains on the window start moving, as if someone is hiding behind them. However, when Noon pulls the curtain aside, no one is there. Her heart pounds with fear. Just then, she hears someone calling her name from behind. Terrified, tears well up in her eyes. Lin arrives, remaining completely calm, and hands her a book on Mulia's black magic. He tells Noon that she must now complete Mulia's unfinished work. However, only Mulia's bloodline can walk this path, meaning Nun must learn everything herself. Lin promises her that at night, he will take her to Mulia's secret place. Meanwhile, Nun's friend Bagaz wants to pray, but Ling stops him, saying that such things are forbidden in the village. However, Bagaz, who always does the opposite, prays anyway. Just then, he feels a presence near him. When he turns around, he sees Mulia's severed head lying nearby. Trembling with fear, he freezes. At the same time, Ayn silently enters her room without speaking to anyone. Her friend Rini starts recording her on camera and asks her questions, but Ayn doesn't respond. Rini puts the camera down and turns away. But then she sees something so shocking that she is left speechless. When she checks the recording, it reveals that there was no one else in the room besides Ayn. Everything feels as if an invisible force is present. Nun's friends now want to leave the place, believing that the village is cursed, but Nun refuses. She wants to learn Mulia's black magic, as it is the only power that connects her to her father. The tension between Bagaz and Noon continues to grow. Meanwhile, another shocking truth about Ajan's life is revealed. Ajan is pregnant with Mulia's child. Actually, she is raising another child. That child is the son of Mulia and his second wife, whom Aang has raised as her own. It's nighttime, and Ajang is trying to sleep in her room, but something strange happens. Her blanket suddenly falls to the ground. Ajang, who was already pregnant, struggles to get up and check on the blanket. As soon as she picks it up, she sees the child sitting there. The child looks at Ajang and says, "Hide, Malia is coming back." Fear is clearly visible on Ajang's face. A shadow appears outside the window. Ajang feels like someone is coming inside, but the next moment her eyes opened. It was just a bad dream. Meanwhile, Lin takes Noon to Malia's secret hideout. He explains that Malia used to practice black magic there and had healed many people using it. Lin tells Noon that he must now take over this responsibility, but to do so, he must go through an ancient ritual. Lin pulls out a knife and cuts Noon's hands and feet. Blood starts flowing, and Lin instructs him to recite a mantra. As soon as Noon begins chanting, he starts seeing strange visions. He sees a blood-soaked demon licking his wounds, and his heart fills with terror. On the other hand, the child sitting near Ajang suddenly wakes up. He senses that something is wrong with Ainan. He sets out to find Lin and goes to Ainan's friend Bagas. The child tells him that Noon is not okay anymore. An evil spirit has possessed him. He tells Bagas, "If you want to learn the secrets of this village, go to the mosque and read verses from the Quran." Meanwhile, Noon regains consciousness. She looks at the wounds on her hands and feet but cannot understand what is happening to her. Baga, who was already curious about the village's mysteries, goes to the mosque and starts reciting verses from the Quran. As soon as he begins, the entire village goes into turmoil. The villagers clutch their heads and scream in agony. Noon also groans in pain, but suddenly Baga's prayer is stopped by an unknown force. The villagers suddenly fall silent, but then they turn against Baga in anger. He is accused of breaking the village's rules. The next morning, Baga is threatened to leave the village. However, before he departs, he starts uncovering some of the village's deep secrets. Aini wants to know why no one is allowed to pray in this village. A child tells Anu that the village is cursed. Every new mother here must sacrifice her child. Noon's mother was also killed for a sacrifice, and now the next sacrifice is supposed to be Ajang. Just then, blood starts dripping from Noon's nose. She silently leaves the room saying, "My father did nothing wrong, Baga." Baga and Rini decide to leave the village, but just then, the child stops them. He hands over all the information he has gathered, which could reveal the village's dark secrets. One night, Noon was wandering through the village streets in a trance. Seeing her, people started following her. Suddenly, a disabled woman approached her and asked for help. Ani instinctively raised her hands in a mystical manner, and miraculously, the woman's broken arm was healed. From that moment, Noon became a goddess in the eyes of the villagers. Meanwhile, a young boy runs to Ajang in panic and says, "Ajang, that evil spirit has returned." Ajang knows that this is the effect of Muli's dark magic. Lin wants Ainan to follow Muli's path so that this curse continues forever, but Ajang and the boy want to escape from it. Just then, the villagers surround Ainan and beg him to cure their illnesses. Meanwhile, Bagas arrives and tries to bring Ainan out of this trance, but the villagers stop him. Lin once again takes Noon to Muli's secret hideout. He attacks Noon's hands and feet with a knife and asks her to chant a mantra. At that moment, terrifying visions of the young boy start appearing in Noon's mind. She sees the boy roaming around with Malia's severed head, which frightens her even more. Meanwhile, Ajang and the boy try to escape from the village. As they run, they reach a cornfield. Suddenly, the boy feels like someone is approaching him. Just then, Noon arrives with a knife in her hand and lunges straight at the boy. Ajang realizes that Ainan is now completely under the control of the evil spirit. Ajang remembers how Mulia had prepared her and the boy's mother for sacrifice. Mulia believed that these sacrifices would keep the villagers healthy, but when Ajang resisted, Mulia attacked her. At that moment, Ajang grabbed a nearby knife and struck Mulia, but it didn't stop him. Then the boy gathered his courage and picked up an iron rod, striking Mulia's neck. This time, Mulia lost his life. Now Ainan, who is completely possessed by the spirit, tries to kill Ajang and the boy. Ajang fights Ainan to give the boy a chance to escape. As the boy runs, he collides with Bagas and Rini. They immediately come to help, but when they return to rescue Ajang, both Ajang and Noon have disappeared. Bagas then reaches Mole's house, where he finds an old book. The book states that the only way to destroy the evil spirit is through the sacrifice of its descendant, or someone with the same bloodline, meaning only a boy can end the spirit. However, the problem is that the spirit is now inside Noon. If the spirit dies, Noon will also die. Baga cannot accept this and tries to find another way. Then he suddenly remembers that reciting verses from the Quran can also destroy the spirit. Meanwhile, Noon drags Aang into the village, intending to kill him in front of everyone. But just then, Baga, his friend, and the young boy arrive. Baga starts reciting the verses loudly. The villagers, who were under the spirit's control, begin screaming in pain. Noon strikes Ajung's head with a large stone. Seeing this, Baga runs to stop Noon, but she overpowers him. The villagers also arrive and try to tie Noon to a tree. But by now, the spirit has become even more powerful. Noon stuns everyone and tries to strangle Lane using her powers. Fear grips the entire village. The evil spirit then screams, "No human can defeat me." This reminds Baga that reciting Quranic verses might work. He gathers the villagers, and together they start chanting the verses loudly. Noon screams in pain and writhes in agony. Suddenly, a loud scream echoes from inside the mansion. Baga and the villagers rush inside and discover a hidden room. Inside the room, several cloth-wrapped sacks are hanging from the ceiling. When they opened a sack, a woman's skeleton was found inside. She was one of the women whom Mulia had captured and imprisoned there. However, opening those sacks was extremely dangerous because the spirits would gain even more power from their energy. Just then, lightning flashed and Nun disappeared from there. The next moment, she reappeared in front of Bagas and the villagers. The spirits of the imprisoned women, who had now turned into demons, began bowing before Noon. She ordered Bagas and his companions to bow as well, but Bagas refused to give up. With all his strength, he began reciting verses from the Quran. The verses had an effect, and Noon fell to the ground. The evil spirit left her body, screaming in pain. Eventually, the spirit was defeated and banished. Nun's life was saved. The next day, the villagers peacefully bid farewell to the spirits of those women and buried their remains. Bagas and his two friends sealed Mulia's book of dark magic forever and hid it in a safe place. This ended the curse that had been looming over the village, and there the story ends. See you next time with another exciting story. Subscribe to this channel for more.